It was supposed to be just another late night drive through the city. Routine, almost comforting. But routine can shatter in an instant. My name is Sarah Stevens, I'm 29, a writer, and I have a bad habit of overthinking. That night I was driving back home to London, after visiting a friend on the outskirts of the city. A simple trip less than 3 hours, down familiar roads I'd taken 100 times. By 2 a.m. was on the M25, the motorway that loops around London. Normally I like driving at night. The city's chaos melted away, leaving only quiet streets, and the hum of my tires against the asphalt. It gave me space to think, but that night felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy and natural, like the whole world was holding its breath. I kept brushing it off as fatigue. Long weekend, too much travel. But no matter how I tried, the sensation clung to me. Something wasn't right. Around 3 I glanced at my fuel gauge. My stomach dropped empty. The warning light blinked to life. Mocking me, I cursed myself. The nearest petrol station was miles away. I wasn't going to make it. I pulled onto the shoulder. Near an isolated stretch of road, hazard lights flashing, headlights stabbing through the mist. Beyond that glow, nothing, just silence, fog and the occasional distant hum of the motorway. I checked my phone, 1 bar of signal. Just enough. I called for roadside assistance. The dispatcher promised about an hour. I exhaled, forcing myself to stay calm. 1 hour I could manage, but the longer I sat, the more oppressive it felt. Every sound was amplified. The ticking of the hazards, the faint groan of wind. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, waiting for a headlights. None came. Just empty black, and then I heard it. A low rumble, distant at first, growing louder, stronger, until twin beams of light cut through my mirror. A lorry, enormous, hulking, rolling out of the fog like some beast of steel. It slowed, then stopped right in front of me. The engine idled, echoing through the night. The cab glowed faintly. I could see a silhouette inside. Normally, seeing another driver would have been comforting, but tonight it felt like a warning. The door creaked open, heavy boots hit the pavement. Footsteps steady, unhurried. He stepped into the glow of my headlights. Tall, broad-shouldered, scruffy beard, worn brown jacket, stained boots thick with grime. His eyes locked on mine through the windshield, and he smiled, thin, unsettling. "Looks like you're stuck," he said. His voice was low, rough. "Need a hand?" My chest tightened. Logic told me he was being kind. Instinct told me to run. "I'm fine." I managed. "I've already called someone. They'll be here soon." He leaned against his lorry, arms crossed, eyes never leaving me. After a pause, he spoke again. "I can take you to a petrol station, just a couple miles. Up, quick ride." The words were polite. The way he said them wasn't too smooth, too patient. "No," I said more firmly. "I'll wait." His smile didn't change. He just nodded like he'd expected that answer. For a second I thought he'd leave. Then he stepped closer. That's when I saw it, steel glinting at his waist, a knife tucked into his belt. Ice flooded my veins. My hand shot to the locks. Click, the door sealed. He noticed, didn't flinch. Almost looked amused. He moved closer. His hand brushed the handle. "I don't mean harm," he murmured softer. "Now you don't want to be alone out here. Not in London, not at this hour." The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. Every nerve screamed drive. But I sat frozen, trembling. He tugged the handle hard. Then Salvation headlights bright, steady, approaching fast. A tow truck. Relief hit me so hard, I nearly cried. The stranger's expression shifted, his eyes narrowing, jaw tight. Without a word he turned, walked back to his lorry and climbed inside. Moments later, the engine roared, and he disappeared into the fog. The tow truck pulled in behind me, yellow lights flashing. A stocky driver climbed out, face lined with exhaustion, but steady. "You all right?" he asked, calm but concerned. "Just ran out of fuel," I said, my voice shaky but controlled. "Thanks for coming so quickly." He nodded, hooked my car up, and within minutes we were moving again. But as I sat there, watching the London road vanish behind us, in the rearview mirror, I couldn't shake the cold pressing into my chest. Even now, when I drive that stretch of road, the memory comes back, the knife, the smile, the silence, and every time I do, I feel that same chill crawling up my spine. My name is Rachel, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in the same terrace house, on the quiet edge of East London. It's a kind of neighbourhood where people greet each other at the corner shop, where children ride bikes down narrow streets, and the most dramatic story you'd hear is about a broken lamppost or a runaway dog. Safe, predictable, almost boring. I'd never thought of it as a kind of place where real fear could creep in. But one Friday night changed that forever. My parents had gone away to Brighton for the weekend, visiting family. My older brother had long since moved out, so I had the house to myself. At 22, I love that kind of solitude. No interruptions, no noise, just me, the sofa, and a Netflix binge with takeaway pizza from the shop at the end of the road. For the first hour or so, everything felt perfect. The hum of the fridge, the faint glow of the TV, the quiet stillness of the house. But slowly, without warning, something began to shift. At first it was subtle, like the air itself was thicker, heavier, an unease that pressed just beneath the surface. I tried to brush it off, overthinking. I told myself I was used to it. But then just after 10:30, I noticed it, a shadow. It flickered past the window in my front room. At first I laughed at myself. Maybe it was the branches of the tall plane tree, swaying in the wind, or a passing neighbour. But as my eyes adjusted to the street outside, I saw it again. This wasn't branches. This wasn't a trick of light. It was a person, tall, slim, standing perfectly still in the small front garden that separated my window from the street. I couldn't make out their face, but I knew instantly they weren't walking by. They were watching me. My stomach tightened, my breath catching in my throat. I crept toward the blinds, pulled them down quickly, unlocked the latch. My pulse thundered in my ears. I checked all the windows, checked the back door. Everything was locked, just as it always was. But my gut told me something different. Something was wrong. I sat back on the sofa, clutching my phone, but I couldn't concentrate. I kept glancing at the blinds, my thoughts spiraling. Maybe it was a drunk stumbling home. Maybe a neighbor. No, deep down, I knew it wasn't that. Minutes passed. Curiosity gnawed at me. Against my better judgment, I slid the blinds aside just a fraction. The figure had moved, no longer still, now pacing slowly back and forth outside my garden gate. Deliberate, waiting, watching. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might give me away. I debated calling the police, but the words in my head sounded ridiculous. There's someone in my garden. They're just standing there. Before I could decide, the figure stopped, turned and stared straight at me. Not at the house, not at the window. At me. I dropped the blinds, stumbling back, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The fear was no longer abstract. It was real, and it was standing just a few feet away from where I sat. I grabbed the nearest thing I could from the kitchen, a large knife, and held it tight. My palms were slick with sweat, but the cold steel gave me a sliver of control. That's when I heard it. The faint click of the back door handle. My body froze. They weren't outside anymore. They were trying to come in. Without thinking, I bolted down the hallway, heart hammering, and slammed the bathroom door shut. I twisted the lock, hands trembling so hard I could barely grip it. My knife was still clutched in my fist, but my thoughts were scattered, drowning under waves of terror. I sent a text to my parents with shaking fingers. Someone's here, I think they're trying to get in. Please call the police. The house fell silent, too silent. I pressed my ear to the door, straining to hear, and then footsteps, slow, deliberate, heavy against the creaking wooden floorboards. They were inside. Each step grew louder, closer, until they stopped just beyond the bathroom door. My breath caught. My heart thudded so loudly I sure it would give me away. The handle rattled once softly, as though they were testing it, and then nothing. Silence so deep it pressed against my skull. I didn't know how long I stood there, frozen, knife in hand, too terrified to breathe. Time felt suspended. Then in the distance sirens wailed. Red and blue lights flashed against the frosted bathroom glass, followed by the sharp sound of police voices shouting from outside. A scuffle broke out, hurried footsteps, a crash, and then the unmistakable sound of someone being dragged. Handcuffs. The intruder was caught. Later the officers told me he was a burglar, someone who'd been roaming East London neighborhoods for weeks, watching, waiting, choosing his moments. And that night, he chose mine. Even with him gone, I didn't feel relief. Not really. Standing in that bathroom doorway, knife still clutched tight, I realized how fragile my sense of safety had been, how easily it shattered. I still live in that house. I still love my neighborhood. But every night when I check the locks twice, sometimes 3 times, I remember the figure standing in the garden waiting, watching, and I know safety was only ever an illusion.